cloud. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world or on YouTube right now watching this. I want to formally welcome you to our monthly Keller Williams Young Professionals Triangle chapter, Coffee with Omega. What this is a monthly video series that we do. We're here in the Triangle, and we are the Young Professionals chapter of Keller Williams Realty. Keller Williams, one of the largest, if not the largest in the world by agent count, franchises in the world right now. And we've got a ton of young people who are hungry and motivated. And every month, our chapter here in the Raleigh-Durham metro area of North Carolina brings together a special guest. Today, we have Miss Allie Parker. We're going to hear from her some amazing wisdom, and we're here just to add value. So a lot of people here are going to be in Raleigh-Durham. We already have people on the call from other markets, someone from the Bay Area, which I'm excited about. And you guys are in for a treat today. So we do this every month. It's usually the second Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. Eastern. That way, people on the West Coast can enjoy it as well. And we hope you enjoy following along. Feel free to go to our Instagram right now, KWYP Triangle NC, and post the post to your story. If you want other people to join in, feel free to take the Zoom link and send it to anyone else. So we're going to go through a lot of great questions for Allie, for her life, her business, all sorts of things. She's got some good stories to tell, and we'll have time to ask questions throughout. So feel free to put any questions in the chat box, and we will have some chance to address those. So I'm going to make Emily the host so Emily can bring people into the room and keep an eye on the chat box. And we're going to get started.
Cool.
Allie, good morning.
Good
you are
morning.
a friend of mine. I'm so excited to interview you just because we're friends, but also because I know your business not only has already been big, this year has gotten even bigger, and you're living a cool life too. So why don't you give us the speed dating version of who is Allie Parker professionally, maybe since college? Catch us up to where you are now.
Well, I certainly don't feel worthy of being here, so I'm thankful and grateful that you guys have invited me to join, and especially those of y'all on the West Coast. I mean, this is just an honor. So I am Allie Parker. I am born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina, currently associated with Keller Williams Cary market. And what a lot of people don't know is because of Patrick, that's why I'm here. So I started my real estate journey in late 2018. My first closing was January of 2019. I was at a boutique brokerage in the area and spent some time on that team aspect for a little while. And February of last year, jumped ship and came over to Keller Williams and started Parker Residential. Since then, we have grown. I say we because Mary Jo, who's on the call, is truly, I mean, probably 51% of the business. She just is the brains behind it all. But with that being said, this year we've done about 27 million, 38 transactions thus far. That is me as an agent and Mary Jo as an admin operations director. And we were so excited to earn 30 under 30 this year nationally, which has just been absolutely incredible, and gearing up for my first Keller Williams national event. So Mega Camp will be my first exposure to the Keller Williams brand on a national scale. So just a lot of exciting things that Keller Williams, the energy has brought, the learning, everything. So that's a little bit about me and my business. Currently married so Hayden Parker is in the development field of real estate. And we live in downtown Cary, North Carolina. And our dog Pearl, who's laying at my feet right here, is, I joke that she's chief morale officer of Parker Residential because she brings joy to me and to my team and to my clients and everybody who interacts with her.
I love that. There's a lot there that we're going to dig into. But just to recap, you said your first closing was in January 2019, right?
Correct. Yes.
A little over 3.5 years ago.
Yes.
And you said this year so far, you've done 25 million. Is that right?
27 million. 27
million closed and pending year to date.
Yep.
So you're on track for a lot more than that. That's kind of crazy, right? A lot of people go, they're happy if they can hit 1 million, 2 million in their first year. So for you to, in 3.5 years, be at 27 million, as an individual agent. And yes. I don't think you mentioned this, but you just earned your way into Gary Keller's top 100, right?
I did. Yes. So my first mastermind with him will be at Mega Camp.
That's a huge deal. Gary Keller not only is a billionaire, which is not the important part, but he is a brilliant mind, an amazing person, a philanthropist, and you're going to be in a room with 99 other individual agents, top in the world, to be honest. Because the top in our franchise for sure certainly has an impact all around the world. I'm excited to hear what that is. I'm excited to be your friend, so I get free notes from that and like some pixie dust rubbing off of you from being next to Gary Keller. So we're excited to hear more about that once you do that. We'll have to bring you back in a little while. But what do your business look like? How do you go from jumping into real estate and then going to 27 million in 3.5 years. Give us an idea, because that seems almost impossible to a lot of agents on this call. Even people who are beyond that point are probably looking back. There's no way I could have done that. I'm not there. I've been in the business 7.5 years, and I'm not anywhere close to that. So why don't you just give us an idea of what your business looks like? How do you find your clients? How do you stay in touch with them? What does your lead generation look like? Just kind of talk us through your philosophy on building your business.
Absolutely. So before I really started in the residential real estate space, there are two pieces of advice that kind of motivated me through everything. One came up from a commercial agent, and he said, hey, if you do a good job, somebody is going to go tell somebody else that you did a good job. If you do a bad job, somebody's going to go tell 100 people that you did a bad job. So and this leads into the second best piece of advice, which is your best marketing and lead generation strategy is the client that's in front of you right now. If you are not 100% present with them, if you are not serving them to the best that you can and that they expect, then that's doing them a disservice, and it's doing your business a disservice. And I think it's so easy as an agent, and I'm so guilty of this, of getting distracted by all of the things, but being present with that client is going to be your best lead generation source. So from there, we've kind of grown. So I would say about 80% of our business is sphere-based, sphere and past clients. So referrals, being seen. So I'm super active in my community as far as volunteering and just going to all the cool stuff and being seen. And then my other unique piece is about 10 to 15% of my business is agent referrals, and not necessarily other residential real estate referrals from around the country, but local commercial broker referrals. So I've built a great relationship with a lot of commercial brokers who send me, they know that they can't do residential, just like I would never touch an office building. So our referral source back and forth has been super unique as well.
Yeah. And even if commercial brokers, our license is dual, we can legally do it, but it's probably not best to operate outside your expertise. But a lot of commercial agents are investors and they know residential really well. They're probably more than happy to send you a buyer in this market and not have to go show 30 homes on the weekends. They like their 9 to 5. They like their business negotiations, not the emotional sometimes negotiations that we have with retail residential clients. So that's awesome. What transitioned from your previous work? So what were you doing between college and real estate? How did that serve you well? What have you carried over? Like any lessons learned in previous industries that you use in real estate now?
That's a great question. So I started right out of school with what I thought was my dream job. So I was an executive trainee for Belk, which is a department store here in the Southwest or in the Southeast. And I did everything from buying to product development for them. So I really worked on design and close and negotiating with the overseas vendors for their Crown and Ivy label, which is their largest label now, which is exciting. I really thought that was going to be it. I was going to design clothes and use my textiles degree and do all of that. But being in a cubicle in a basement at a corporate office was not how I saw the next 40 years going. So my husband had an opportunity to move back to the Raleigh area. We were in Charlotte. He was my boyfriend at the time, husband now, to start a company on the property management side. And so from there, he was going to Thailand and I decided to quit my job and go with him. Came back to Raleigh without a job, did a short stint at the local chamber of commerce here and loved the aspect of that, of networking and people. And so really what drew me into residential real estate was the combination of chamber work and people and networking and just, being out there. And then also that negotiation and creativity side that came from design and close. So it's the perfect balance. I got my license just because I knew I was going to buy a house back in 2015 into 2016, but didn't put it to use until 2018.
What was your support network like when you decided to quit your job, go to Thailand? How long were you there, by the way? In Thailand?
We were only there for a couple of weeks, but it was still incredible.
Yeah, but I mean, you quit your job and move. It's different than when you go on vacation now as a busy realtor and your work is on your hip. It's hard for us to do it. I mean, you leave on for vacation tomorrow, right?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. So Allie has a $27 million business year to date. So we're probably pacing close to 40 million at least. And she's going to leave to go to, are you going to wine country? Is that right? Or California? Yeah. Wine country. So go say hey to Devaney. Devaney, you guys need to connect. That way it becomes a work trip, right? If you
exactly. I'll expense every taste.
Yeah. So, So you're leaving, you have Mary Jo who has her license.
Yes.
I guess I'm so curious about how you structure your business. So many individual agents are scared to make that first hire.
Yeah.
So many of us in KW Young Professionals specifically are either an individual agent who's
Yeah.
scared to make the first hire, or they've made one and it didn't go well, or they're fumbling through, because a lot of us are so good with people, the clients that is, and we don't know how to manage and replicate ourselves with someone else. So what are those early growing pains like for you in building a team and a business, not just a client, not just a group of clients who love you? Because that's very different than a business.
Absolutely. And I owe all of that to my real estate coach. So I go through a coaching company, same as Patrick, Middleton Elite Coaching. I work with Debbie LaRiviere there. And I hired them about a year ago. And she essentially put an ultimatum on me of, this was when I was doing about 50, I think I did 52 transactions last year on my own without any leverage. Wow. And she said, Allie, I can't continue to coach you unless you hire somebody. And like a lot of us, we don't like to get uncomfortable with things we don't know. And I do absolutely nothing about leading anybody or hiring anybody or what that looked like. So my coach really guided me through what that process looked like, what I needed. It took me through a lot of bad interviews to get to honestly the best one that I could possibly have. So that's Mary Jo, who's on my team now. She is fully licensed assistant, director of operations, because she does so much more than just transaction coordination. She truly runs the business. But I mean, it's worth paying more to hire somebody who's fantastic. And Mary Jo is a true testament to that. She works Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and one weekend a month. She covers for me so that I can go do things with my family and have a life. And in return, she gets 2 flex days a month. So if she wants to take off on a Tuesday and run her errands, all for that, go do it. I try not to bother her. That doesn't happen a lot of the times. But that's just a true testament to what an integral part of the business she is.
So you don't have a buyer's agent, who's someone who's dedicated. So is that in the books, or do you like staying an individual agent, or do you want to keep growing this team?
That's a great question. So Gary Keller would say, obviously not in the works, because I need 2 admins first. As far as the buyer's agent goes, I don't think so. So right now, Mary Jo might say differently, but we're rocking and rolling at a great pace, and it's still something that we can handle and manage. If God is good and we continue to grow, I think the next hire will be somebody that Mary Jo manages.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thankfully things are cooling off a little bit, where buyers aren't having to drop what they're doing and go see a house in the first 18 minutes to get an offer submitted. And even then you're too late, right? Some of these homes we're selling in the coming soon phase, sight unseen. Even though that's kind of not quite the case anymore, it still is for the popular properties. How did you handle that as an individual agent with only Mary Jo as your leverage? Were you kind of contracting with other agents on a freelance basis? Like, hey, go show this house for me for $50 or $100, or how do you manage the volume of your buyers? Because so many of us are struggling with that.
No, that's a great question. And honestly, you just buckle down and do it. So I had to really, during that time, learn that boundaries are boundaries. And the whole appointment thing, hey, I have an appointment. That appointment can be me going to the grocery store for the week. But just having a plan of action. So one of the things we implemented and still do, even though the market's cooled off, is when a buyer wants to see a property, before they even go see it, they get a complete rundown of the property. So they get all the numbers of comparable sales. They get everything that we can find from this sale and past sales. And a lot of times what we were finding in the market is, okay, it's listed at 300. It's probably going to go to 350. That's going to be too much. So let's not waste our time.
Yeah.
Or on the contrary, it's listed at 300. It could appraise at 350. Okay, we're going in with that mindset. This one's definitely worth seeing. So we do a lot of proactive approaches to things so that there's no time wasted. It is truly, we set our clients up for the expectations that they're going to be cared for. And that's really what got us through the craziness of it all.
Wow. So you're running comps before you even do a showing? Because I usually wait. Like if my buyers want to see 4 houses in an afternoon, they're probably not going to like 3 of them. So I can save my time is my mentality, at least. And then I tell them, yeah, once you find the house you're interested in, then I'll run the comps and we'll make an offer strategy. How do you shift that mentality? Is that something that Mary Jo helps you with the leverage, or let's dig into that a little bit more in the nitty gritty?
Yeah. So Mary Jo absolutely helps me with that piece of it. And I mean, y'all know when it was craziness, and it still kind of is today, and the right price in the right area and whatnot, you didn't have time to go home and run comps and submit an offer.
Yeah.
And between you and me, it was easier too then to talk terms right there at the property, so that there was no time for thinking about or finagling. It was gut reaction. Here's what we're going in at, and everybody's excited about the home. In the same vein, it could be that the buyers are in love with the house and we run the numbers and it doesn't make sense after me seeing it and whatnot. And all of y'all are great agents. So, you know, you have to be really comfortable with saying too, like, this house is not worth it. This is not your house. I know it might feel like it, but here's why. As your trusted agent, you can't do that. Or I wouldn't advise you to do that, of course.
Yeah, of course.
So I don't know, it takes us a little more work on the front end, but I think we're doing a disservice to our clients by not arming them with enough information up front to be able to make the decision when they need to make the decision.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And you know, like I hinted at, that buyer market has cooled off a little bit. Buyers have some time. You know, the days on market are lasting a little longer. You and I have both had listings that have sat on the market where we've had to go to our sellers and say, hey, your expectations and mine aren't what the market's showing us. How do you navigate those conversations? Because it seems like in some cases we're having more hard conversations with our sellers right now, even though there's still such low inventory. Things should still be selling much more competitively than they are. But as our coach Bill said recently when he was here doing a mastermind with us, even though we're still in such a strong seller's market, it has shifted back towards a buyer's market so abruptly that it almost feels like the buyers are in more control, even though we still have a huge lack of inventory. So how are you handling those conversations with your seller when they're not getting the results that they expected?
Absolutely. And I have two kind of lanes to go there. One, when it comes to like a listing appointment, I used to say that I lost listings, but I've kind of switched my mindset to I am consciously making better business decisions about which sellers me and Mary Jo are worth to work with and which are not. So if somebody wants to list $200,000 more than what we're advising, I don't want my sign sitting there for 60 days, taking 4 price drops before we get an offer. So instead of losing that listing to somebody else who's willing to do the same, I am making a conscious business decision that, okay, they aren't listening to me now. I'm not going to set myself up for that mental roller coaster down the line.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then once they go on the market and are sitting, it's disassociating yourself from the market. You know, as agents, Stephanie Lanier, who's a phenomenal agent out of Wilmington, talks about how real estate is tough because a lot of times we have to be empathizers. We take on all of these emotions of our clients. It's almost like we're therapists, right? And we have no formal education on any of that. Definitely and so to make you a good agent, you have to have empathy and you have to be there with your clients, but you also have to disassociate yourself from the market. And the best tool that I have seen is from the Shift book, Step 7. It shows the graphs of what a balanced market looks like, what a seller's market, and what a buyer's market. And I actually had Mary Jo create a branded version of that to take to listing appointments to say, hey, here's what we're seeing. Here's how we're going to price, and here's why.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And I think something I've heard a few times recently is it sounds like you've grown a lot in your confidence of not just being desperate to take on a listing and put your sign in the yard if it's way overpriced. Because honestly, that's not good for your brand either. Then you become associated with not being able to sell houses. You also have set clear boundaries with, hey, I have an appointment, even if it's an appointment with myself to go get my groceries. What does your workday look like?
That's a great question. And I appreciate that you say that I've established these boundaries. I am probably the least, I have no boundaries, sadly. And that's something that I am cognizant on and working on. But my day typically looks like, so I wake up around 6, always a workout, get your mind right. I always do, I don't know if y'all do this. So through the Calm app, it's called the Daily J. It's a short 7-minute meditation. Highly recommend. I don't sit there and meditate, but I do it typically while I'm in the shower or getting ready or something like that. Get my mind right. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, Mary Jo and I are typically in the office. Tuesday mornings, I try and take off for a little bit of mental break and time and groceries and all of those good things. And then Fridays, y'all know, in the real estate market are a free for all. So typically out showing all days or at listing appointments or doing all of the things. So try and stay in the office in the mornings and make those appointments in the afternoons, just to give some type of consistency to the workday.
What about your weekends? Do you work weekends? Is Sundays off limits or yeah, tell me about that.
Honestly, I feel like, so Sundays I go to church, and then I typically work most Sunday afternoons. I try to not schedule appointments on Saturdays.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
that's kind of a hot take, but
Yeah.
and it doesn't always happen. But
Yeah.
hey,
Mhm.
that gives me the opportunity to, if we want to go out of town to the beach or something and come back Sunday afternoon, I can still show Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, that's great. So have an abbreviated little vacation there, a little getaway. That's the
Totally.
beauty of North Carolina, right? We're like 2-3 hours from the beach and the mountains. So
Yeah. If y'all are
move to
looking to
North
move
Carolina,
here.
everyone. Yeah. Use Allie as your realtor. Send her your referrals. So what keeps you motivated to build a $27 million business? It's, clearly, and give us an idea of what sort of GCI that is. And before you answer that, for anyone who's not in real estate or is thinking about real estate, GCI refers to gross commission income, and that's just the revenue of our business. So it's not what we make. It's not our take home pay. It's not what's in our savings accounts. It's essentially what, if you add up all the cups of coffee that a coffee shop sells, that's their revenue. So when you're doing 27 million, about how much in revenue is that for Parker Residential, the business?
That's a great question that I should probably know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But GCI wise, off 27 million is about 550.
550.
I would say, yeah.
So we're talking
So
about $500,000 of your business is brought in, and you clearly have employees and a ton of expenses and taxes that get taken out of that, health insurance. That's you're also married. Hayden works. He's in real estate development. You guys have investments. What keeps you motivated? What keeps you wanting to bring on all this headache and all these more and more clients? Because that's a lot more work. It's a lot more Sunday afternoons when you could be at the beach. So tell us about what you're building, what the goal is.
No, I love this question. And so when I started in the business, I wanted to do it because obviously y'all all heard the status or the statistics that say that realtors are like the number 2 most mistrusted, whatever. So that was honestly the motivation from the get-go, is let's change the standard of real estate. Let's be friends with our clients, really show, not just tell them, but show them we have their best interest at heart. And that continues to this day to be a motivation, putting more money in their pockets, putting them first and whatnot. But with that has become, it's been interesting building what a lot of people say is a successful business. I think a lot of people define success differently. And that's something that I'm working on with my coach, is what does success look like? Because if you don't have that definition, you continue to grind. And for what?
Yeah.
And so that's been an interesting conversation and dynamic. It's always going to be my clients and their results and their happiness that drives me. But at the same time, you can't lose sight of it's so much easier to focus on our clients than ourselves. And so I feel like a lot of this has been trying to pull yourself back into it and really think about what drives you and motivates you. It's always going to be my family. It's always going to be my clients. But at the same time, like, when am I ever going to feel like I made it? Because you sit here and say all these stats and it sounds great, but like, I'm not number 1. And what a toxic trait and thing to even think about,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting when you say not having boundaries earlier in the call, and then it being all about your clients. A successful business with satisfied clients is going to keep feeding itself, right? And so you could very easily get overwhelmed where you don't want to say no to a friend or a friend of a friend. You obviously would like the paycheck in the end, and you're solving a need. Most importantly, it's someone who's like, Allie, I don't know who to trust. You seem great. I really need someone in this bonkers market in Raleigh. How do you protect yourself from not getting burned out? Because if you burn out, you're not good to anybody. Your clients will get poor service, and then that'll tarnish your brand over time. And all of us on this call struggle with it. You and I have had many calls where we've helped each other through this. So what can you share about protecting yourself from burnout?
Yeah. And I'm going to get real vulnerable and open here. And I feel like
please do.
In an effort to try and get people to have the dialogue and the conversation more. So I actually just had the coolest coffee ever with somebody. He is a former minister, and I connected with him because I was hearing him speak at an event, and he said he was in ministry, and he started to get, like, each sermon and the praise he got afterwards started to feel like a high. And that started to be what drove him, instead of the core reason everything happened. And I was like, whoa, I am not there yet. But how easy would it be for that to become something in real estate? Like you're just chasing the deal, you're chasing the reviews, you're chasing the social media followers, you're chasing all these things. So I think the way to protect burnout is to get real with yourself around those types of conversations, giving yourself dedicated time to think about things, and not just your clients, but yourself and your life. And okay, what's motivating you? One thing that I implemented about a month ago is 30 minutes after every closing, I like not meditate, but I think through that closing. What went really well and what didn't, and what systems and processes can we put into place to make sure that that went better? And you never have the time to do that before, but physically making yourself sit there, honestly, my coach said, in the car, and think through it has been a big game changer. And not just on closings, but on listing appointments, on, okay, you go on a walk with your husband and your dog after work and you just feel you're fulfilled. Like sit there and think about that and why, and how do you implement more of that into your life? So I think the big thing about burnout is giving yourself time to think about what's working and what's not working.
Yeah, I mean, I love that post-closing debrief. Or
Yeah.
if you were anyone like my father who was in the military, when I was a kid playing baseball, he would always have a debrief. We called it the after action review. I guess it's just a military term they would have after some sort of operation or exercise. They would come back, debrief, do the after action review. But I mean, how powerful of a tool, right? It could be a closing that just crashed over the finish line that you never thought would get there, or like the smoothest one in the world. Maybe even those you want to focus on more. Like, why was it so easy? Why are those the best clients? How can I get more of that and less of that?
Totally.
So give us a system or two that you've implemented post closing, whether it's something that went poorly or something that went well.
No, that's a great question. So I just started doing this last month, but I think one of the biggest tools and
That
helpful.
was only like 20 or 30 closings ago.
Oh
Right?
gosh, no. I wish July
Yeah.
and August are pretty slow.
Yeah.
But so we use Command, and the checklists within Command literally are all encompassing. And so if something was missed, going back in and making sure that little detail is added, even if it's not going to pertain to every closing, is really important. And all credit goes to Mary Jo on that because I don't touch those. But I can have candid conversations with her about, okay, this happened, this can't happen again. What can we do to implement it and make sure that it doesn't happen? So it could be as little as adding something to a checklist. It could be as big as, wow, okay, here's another one. I just went to a listing appointment. It was a 92-year-old woman. She was very intimidated by showings in the open market. I was not Keller Offers certified, so I could not speak to or offer her that value of an off-market offer, like an open door or whatnot, but through Keller Williams at that time. So I told her I was going to go research how that worked and get back to her to present that. And by the time I got back to her, she had sold the open door. So you better believe we are adding a Keller Williams Offers handout or something to our listing folder. So if that arises, we have something to refer back to.
Yeah, that's powerful. And if anyone who's not familiar with the Keller Williams lingo, Command is our CRM that Keller Williams has created for us, which is just a client relationship manager or customer relationship manager. It's where you have all of your past closings, all of your clients, and it has a checklist of what to do. So it could be this client got their offer accepted, you move them to a new bucket, and then now they're under contract. And it says, okay, now next steps are checklist, schedule the home inspection, attend the home inspection, make sure the appraisal was ordered, things like that. And I actually just put a link in the comments of a book that I should have read by now. I've owned it for 2 or 3 years and haven't read it yet, but it's called The Checklist Manifesto by a guy named Atul Gawande. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But the idea being like some of the most high risk jobs in the world that need the most trusted technicians are like airline pilots, surgeons, and those people get checklisted to death. They have to say things out loud and they have someone else that has to verbally confirm, and they have to read this list to make sure nothing gets missed. Because how often are we on autopilot? No aviation pun intended, but when we just forget something. I've had it in my business. Allie, I'm sure you've had it where you got to closing and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we missed that.
Yeah.
Or thank God that didn't go wrong, but we missed it. So it could be as simple as ordering a survey or ordering a radon test. But when you go through those motions, not only does it make sure nothing gets checked, it gives you the peace of mind that you're not wondering if something got missed, right? So check out that book. I think it was like $10 on Amazon's. Anyone who's looking for systems in their life, read that book, and maybe we can do a book club because I need to read it as well. Another one that came to mind, which I've got up here on my shelf, is called Ego is the Enemy. It's more of a, I would say, more soft science rather than like a checklist kind of book, but it's about these ancient Stoic philosophers and how what they did and the mindsets they had, Allie, like you were saying, like your conversation with your pastor or your minister, to not get this inflated ego, because that will be one of the biggest deaths of your business and your reputation if that becomes your why. Something I want you to talk about, speaking of your why, Allie, and what you're building, you shared with me a little bit about some development opportunities, trying to buy some land. Your husband, Hayden, is really active in the commercial space. Your brother is active in the commercial space. Your father is active. This is like a family that you guys are in, this Parker Withers empire. So tell us, what's the goal there? What do you guys want to do instead of just selling houses over and over and over on the endless, hamster wheel of real estate cycle? What other investments and personal wealth journey do you have going on?
That's a great question. And I think Hayden and I are super unique in that we're really diverse. So we obviously have the traditional investments as far as market accounts and 401k and all of those exciting things that I could never do. So all the props to those that do. But we also, we own a residential rental. We own or part owners, co-owners of commercial spaces with long-term leases and tenants, which is phenomenal. We try to go of it at some land in Fuquay Varina, which is kind of a suburb of the Raleigh area. It was going to be an amazing opportunity. So it was 6 acres that we could get 40 townhome units out of. Went through that journey and process, figured out it was going to be a little more to take on than we had the leverage for at the time. So lost some money in that. So it's not always, you take the good with the bad. But as far as future investments go, our main drive right now is probably going to be commercial and development opportunities. So getting in early on things as far as industrial buildings or commercial multifamily or whatever it is. So we're kind of holding out and building up a little stockpile of cash for that at the moment.
Okay. So no house flipping, no Airbnbs at the moment. Commercial, is this just by nature of Hayden's job and what he has access to, and you being busy with your job too?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the commercial piece of it, I feel like it takes you out of it a little bit more. So we, like I said, we have residential investments. You kind of get tied up in the emotions of your tenants and all of those. Commercial is more cutthroat. It's more cut and dry. If you have a triple net lease, you don't even hear from them, see them. You just rake in the cash if it's a right investment. So that's more the route that we're going. And we've decided is going to work for a little bit better for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we can't even dig into all the commercial things, but essentially a triple net lease is where the tenant pays for everything. They're paying for the upfit of the unit. Usually they're paying for their utilities, insurance, things like that. And so ask Allie your questions, get a hold of her. Feel free to leave your questions in the chat box, by the way, for Allie, and we'll leave some time at the end for you guys to ask. Speaking of those book recommendations I mentioned, I know you mentioned the Calm app that you like to do in the morning.
Yeah.
Are you a reader? Are you a podcaster, an audiobook? Tell us about how you intake information.
All three. So I'm a big runner, and instead of listening to music while I run, I typically listen to a podcast. Jay Shetty's On Purpose podcast has honestly changed my life this year. So he's a former monk who now just has built this empire of basically making people better and forcing them to have hard conversations with themselves and by interviewing others. So highly, highly recommend On Purpose. That is what I'm listening to currently, along with Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. I have an audiobook that I'll listen to in the car. That really dives into the whys behind emotions and different reactions, which is great. And then as far as reading goes, I'm currently reading 2 books professionally. One is the Shift book I'm reading again. So highly recommend it. Each time I feel like you get better nuggets because one market is never the same. And then secondly, Be Where Your Feet Are is another one. It's it's the manager or something of some basketball team in the Northeast. I don't know. Patrick, you would know. I don't know. I heard him in an interview on the On Purpose podcast, and he resonated with me so much that I bought his book. So.
And then Shift.
Shift.
Gary Keller, of course, that's a classic one. If you're with Keller Williams, we have a call every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern called the Shift Pivot Call hosted by James Shaw, an incredible real estate mind and a great facilitator for these sorts of conversations about how to build businesses in a shifting market, or really in any market for that matter. But the Shift book is there. I tell you what, I've got a few copies of the Shift book I'm happy to give out to anyone that's on this call right now. If you need a copy, just let me know for free and we can meet up here in the Triangle. I'd love to give it to you. And that's another book I need to read. So let's do a book club about that one. Allie, how far are you into the book? Is it too late to jump on a book club with you on the Shift book?
As far as Shift?
Yeah.
So I'm focusing right now on step 7, which is pricing strategies. But I tell you what, you read that every day for 5 days, you feel real confident going into a listing appointment and sharing about how to list a home in this market. So highly recommend if you have any hesitations around those conversations, just do that 5 days in a row and you'll be good to go.
Awesome. I love it. That's great. And the Shift call in the mornings just goes over like 1 or 2 pages every morning of the Shift book. So if you need a book club, let's not do it together. Jump on that call and you're going to go through the entire book. I forget how long it takes them to go through the whole book, but I think they're just going to start it back over when they finish it. So hop on that call in the morning. What does mental health look like to you in real estate?
Mental health?
Yeah. You mentioned that earlier. You mentioned getting up at 6 a.m. to work out, but you said get my mind right when you worked out. You didn't say get my body right. You said get my mind right. So that made me curious. What does mental health look like to you, or that you see other realtors doing well or even poorly? Like what would you recommend to other realtors? That's a common pitfall in this industry.
So I'm a big person on don't give advice that you have no business giving. So I feel like I fall into that category. When it comes to working out, I mean, when you're physically working out, you cannot do anything else. So whether it's you're in a studio or on a run, you can't be talking to somebody running or you can't be responding to a text while you're in a bar class or any of that. So physically having that distance is really nice. One thing that I've implemented that has been awesome is the do not disturb feature and the focus feature on your phones. So having the confidence to put that on, it actually, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but it shows people when you don't have notifications on. And I feel like that's a boundary that clients respect and see that you don't even have to have a conversation about, which has been super helpful and nice. Going forward, I think it's just more respecting my time. So I've been trying to give up Tuesday mornings to myself for the 8 months now. I'm not great at it, but I haven't given up on trying. So just establishing those boundaries has been really good, and hiring leverage. I mean, Mary Jo is the reason that I have the relationship with my husband that I have, and can go to the grocery store on a Tuesday morning. And without her, I wouldn't have any mental health. So.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I want to ask you another one.
Okay.
This is a quick one. What if it's just a random question I like to ask? Let's say Zillow and Open Door totally obliterate the real estate agent position. What would you be doing? What's Allie Parker's fallback plan if real estate doesn't work out?
That's an easy one. And honestly, I hope it still happens, but I would
You're
love
rooting
to
for
have
the downfall of the real estate agent.
Yeah, no. I hope my dream still happens. I don't hope that Zillow and Redfin take over the world, which I don't.
No, I got you. I'm just playing.
They don't quite have the interpersonal skills that you and I do.
Yeah.
But no, I would 1000% own a retail store at the beach, Wilmington, North Carolina area. That's where I would be in a happy place with my coffee every morning. Pearl would be in the store. It'd be great.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. We could talk about a lot of things, and I know we're getting close to the end here. I'll leave about 10, 15 minutes for questions and more miscellaneous chat. But what advice do you have for younger agents? I'm sure a ton of people look up to you. You're probably going to get a lot of people reach out after this call for advice. Where do you see agents struggle that you just you wish you could inject something into their veins? What 2 or 3 top pieces of advice would it be?
Invest your time in what feels fun. So the type of lead generation shouldn't feel like you dread it. If it's good lead generation, you're going to want to do it. So a lot of times my lead generation is literally a texting conversation with past clients. Like, hey, I saw your pregnancy announcement on Facebook. I'm so excited for y'all. Like, tell me about which room are you using for the nursery? Those type of things. At one point I was doing farming and was going to do this farming event. And I don't think I slept for like 4 days because I was like dreading the lead up to that. And so scrapped, done, not doing it. Best thing I've ever done. And then
let's stay on this. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, just get creative with it. One of the ways, I think I got 4 transactions my first year by just being bold and creating a relocation package. And I got connected with a local HR, two local businesses that I knew were growing and hiring. And I took it to them and I said, hey, I'd love to provide value to anybody you're interviewing who's going to be moving. Here's the relocation package. And also I'm willing to do a tour of the area if they're flying in to interview.
Wow.
So I would actually do tours for the interviewees, and a lot of them didn't get the job or didn't take the job, but again, 4 of them did, and I helped them buy. So it was great.
Yeah. And that sounds like probably something you don't have the time to invest in a low conversion ratio activity, but I mean, what a great way for you to get to know the area. You're doing a repeatable thing that you can script and you can probably do on a moment's notice. You just have a packet of materials ready and just put on a good outfit, make sure your car's clean and ready to go. You mentioned client events. So before we get into more advice for young agents or struggling agents, you threw a client event recently. I know because I saw your Instagram was blown up with people reposting it, that then you reposted, or they posted a story and then you reposted it. How did that go? And so what makes that different from your farming event? Because it seemed like a past client appreciation kind of thing. Tell us about that.
It sparked out of needing business. Obviously July and August I already said we're really slow. And so I was going to do this farming event and it really didn't feel right. And my coach said, okay, well, like, what if you do something fun for your top 50, which ended up, I texted probably 100 people because I'm an all or nothing type of person. But I read it out.
Usually you might see a 40 to 50% RSVP rate anyway.
Totally.
So so that if you're going for 50 people, you want to invite at least 100 usually.
So, and I had noticed recently, it was a lot of relocation people who didn't know anybody. And so I was like, what a good opportunity for clients to meet friends. So I rented out a room at a brewery. People could bring their kids, people could bring their dogs. I had open bar, grab wine or beer. There was a food truck there. My lender and insurance agent sponsored giveaways, which was awesome. And the way to earn your chance into the giveaways, it was a tiered system. So being there was 1 entry. If you posted on social media stories, it was 2 entries. If you did an actual post, it was 3. If you referred a client, it was 5 or something. It was super fun. There were probably like 70 people there. It was wild how many people showed up on a rainy Sunday afternoon.
And what were the giveaways that you guys like? Was it really, did they know in advance? Did that help bring the attendance?
I think that really drove people there. I did everything from like a deep cleaning of the house to there's this cool thing in Raleigh called Eat Thai Raleigh. And it's this woman who moved here during COVID from Thailand. And she comes to your house and cooks dinner and this traditional Thai meal and then cleans up and leaves. What? So I did dinner for 6 through her. I did a Shibumi shade, which is like this cool company that does the beach tints. We love our Shibumi shade. That thing's amazing. I'm like a Shibumi shade evangelist. So that's a great idea for a gift. So just cool stuff like that, that provide value. And I tell you what, I did get some business from it, or at least some leads, which is exciting. But the coolest thing was one of my clients was leaving and they came up to me and they were like, hey, we got these other clients' numbers. We're going camping. And I was crazy. Like, how cool is that? Like, our job is to help people buy and sell homes. But if you can provide friendships and value beyond that, like, what a cool thing. Especially for those recent relocators who didn't know people, you're providing them a house and literally a community. Like what maybe even more valuable than the house is a support network in the new city that they moved to. Absolutely. That's fantastic. Something else I want to ask about too here, check the time and see if we got any questions in the chat. Man, you guys are quiet, no questions. I love it. Allie's just either boring you to death, which is not the case, I know, or she's blowing your mind and you can't think about anything else. Selfish question for me, you're talking about these client events. The lenders gave that amount, and then gosh, I completely lost my question. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Yeah, it was about joining Keller Williams. You mentioned that on the top of the call, how you and I did a transaction together before you were with Keller Williams. And I mean, I didn't recruit you, did I? No. We just grabbed coffee and we're like, hey, that was great. You seem like a cool person. Let's keep those going. It's so great to have relationships outside your brokerage too. Cause even this, we're mostly Keller Williams people on this call, but I learned so much from, being on Clubhouse, the audio app where you can listen to people, and that's very brokerage agnostic. A lot of these rooms that we're in, and the kind of cross-pollination of ideas. But what's it like for you to change brokerages? Because that's a big deal. Your brand is tied to that. You have relationships. Those are the people who taught you how to do real estate. You feel indebted to that. What makes you want to overcome that inertia? And what advice do you have to other agents here on this call, whether it's leaving brokerages or whether it's just doing something that they might be scared to do in their business and in their personal life? Yeah, I think if you aren't betting on yourself, you're betting on somebody else. And you just really have to weigh the options on what it's worth to you. So, and I owe so much credit to you. So like you kind of mentioned, we did a transaction together years prior to 2021. So we continue to get coffee and stay in touch and mastermind and do all of the things. But when it came time to change brokerages, I was in a situation where I really didn't have a chance to interview or do any of that. So I called you and I said, hey, I need to join Keller Williams. There was no question in my mind.
Yeah, it was the easiest recruiting call I've ever had.
Yeah, I really didn't know much about the brokerage at the time, but I knew that you were there and I had such faith in your decision that it felt like I didn't even need to have an option, right? So, and since then, I mean, Keller Williams, the value that's been provided through I don't dive into all of the calls that are offered, but the ones that I do, you walk away going, wow, like I wouldn't have ever gotten that from a smaller brokerage or a brokerage that wasn't as collaborative. Like some of these are so competitive and it's just truly, truly feels like rising tide floats all boats. And through that, I mean, you aren't just betting on yourself, but you have others betting with you, which is nice as well.
Yeah. What does it mean to be in Keller Williams and then to join? You're active in young professionals. I know you're also active in our sports and entertainment segment and our luxury segment. So those are big time commitments. You know, it's a lot more Facebook notifications for every different group that you're a part of, and email threads and texts. How do you navigate how to spend your time within Keller Williams without drinking from the water hose and getting too diluted and too overwhelmed with great options, and focusing on what, you know, is the most important thing for your business where you are now?
Yeah. So I'm active to an extent. So I'm confident enough to say that if somebody's going to refer a agent in Raleigh through young professionals, it's probably going to be you or Becca or Kate or somebody like that, which is totally fine. But the collaboration behind it is totally worth it. So I can go to the group and post a question and get so much good insight and feedback that's the value in itself, right? Same with sports and entertainment, the camaraderie there. The luxury is just a nice kind of mastermind for those properties that are a little bit unique. But I truly, if I get referrals from those, it's an added bonus. I'm in it for the value and the conversations that are happening around me.
Yeah. And I think that goes for most of us who really dive into the YP community and the SE communities. Like, even if you weren't allowed to get referrals and that was illegal, I mean, we would be in it for the masterminds, right? And it's this kind of conversation. I for example, Devaney on this call from the Bay Area in San Francisco, met her through sports entertainment or YP, one of the two, I forget, but I know she's active in both. But at the sports and entertainment red carpet event we had, she wasn't drinking because she's doing 75 hard. And she was one of, I think, 4 or 5 people I heard of in KW, specifically in YP, who were doing 75 hard. And now I'm halfway through myself, and it's changing my life. And so things way outside of how to be a better realtor is almost like, that's like the lowest end of the totem pole that I'm getting from these communities. It's just, you know, the rising tide lifts all ships. And like, we all here in YP are highlighting you and your business in the triangle. Technically, some people maybe at other brokerages might see you as competition, but we're here, we're colleagues, we're here to grow with each other. And so yeah, I can't thank you enough for sharing all your wisdom on this call this morning and digging into all these questions. Speaking of questions, I've asked a bunch. I see a bunch of people. Thank you for those of you who have your webcams on to show Allie the warm vibes and the faces here. Who has questions for Allie? Go ahead and just unmute yourself and pop right up.
I have a comment and a question. So the way that Allie talks about Patrick is the way that I feel about Allie. So Allie is the reason that I'm here. And you know, we did get coffee and talk about it, whatever, but I really feel like because Allie said, this is where I am, I said, well, that's gotta be a good place to go. And that's why I'm at KW Cary. So thank you, Allie. My question, and I probably forgot it because I was waiting. You said you didn't do a farming event per se, but do you do any sort of farming, like mailers and stuff like that? I mean, I've tried it and I didn't get anything out of it and I gave up. I did it like 3 different areas, 3 different times. I did it in my own neighborhood a couple of times, my old neighborhood, my new neighborhood. And it's just never worked. And if you have any insight into that, I would I would love to hear it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, and then no. I started a farming campaign earlier on this year in the downtown Cary area, so the Maynard Loop, and then also in the neighborhood that I grew up in, which is in South Raleigh. Was it fruitful? Yes. I got a listing and a listing appointment off of one of each, which was phenomenal. And I wasn't consistent. I stopped. And honestly, if there's one thing I've learned about my business this year, it's that I like working with warmer leads rather than cold leads. So why am I investing all this money and time into something that just doesn't feel right to me? And a lot of people are going to sit there. I mean, like I was in a room last week with Robbie Cavender, which if y'all don't know him, he is a phenomenal agent out of Burlington. And his bread and butter is for sale by owners. And he sat there in a room full of 50 people on speakerphone and called for sale by owners. Like what? That just blew my mind. And just because that's not my business doesn't mean that I don't absolutely respect it. And it's just cool. But all that goes to say everybody has their thing and it has to feel right for you to be good at it. So farming, absolutely. Was it fruitful? Yes. Should I continue to do it? Probably. But are there other things that I want to do instead? Yes. And especially in a shifting market, there's only a certain amount of money that I give myself to play around with when it comes to marketing. So I'm going to use that for things that I think are going to be more me. And my farming pieces were unique too. So the first one that went out was truly an introduction to me. Like, hey, you might see me and my dog Pearl walking around the neighborhood. So give them a sense of like who I am. The second one that went out came from Value. I can't remember exactly what it was. Mary Jo was the spearheader behind all these. And then the third one was literally a map of everything that I'd sold in that farm, which actually, when you look back at it, was super impressive. And I got the idea because I got a letter in the mail from a roofer that said, hey, here's the map for this date where you had some hail. Like, this is your house. You should probably get a roof inspection. And I called them and I got a roof inspection. So I was like, wait, I can do this with real estate. Here's a map of everything that I've sold in this area. Why wouldn't you want to work with me? Like, it's actually kind of impressive. It's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question, Emily. Who else has a question for Allie before we sign off?
I got one, and sorry, I don't look great. I had a laser treatment, so it's rather bold of me to pop on here. But so going back to the events, I am throwing one that sounds really similar to the one that you have thrown. Yeah. How far in advance are you inviting people and how many times are you following up with them? I am kind of a perfectionist, so if I'm not doing it all, I'm gonna not do it at all. So
yep, no, you hit the nail on the head. And that was a challenge for my coach, is just do it. So I think from the time that I decided I was going to do it to it actually happening was like 2.5 weeks. So the first week I like kind of put things into place, and then I didn't invite them until like maybe 2 weeks before. And it was an email invitation. And then I used my lead generation one day as a text, saying, hey, I hope you can make it. And then the day, I think 2 days before, actually, I texted him and was like, hope to see you this weekend. I didn't focus on the perfection of inviting people or getting RSVPs or any of that. What I really strove to do was using it as my lead generation before and after the event.
Yeah. So even people who don't show up to the event, they're still hearing from you.
Oh my gosh. No,
yeah.
The coolest thing that ever happened was some client showed up and she had texted me and was like, my mom's going to be in town. Can I bring my mom? And I was like, of course, I'd love to meet your mom. Her mom brought a bird. So everybody was there with their dogs. And her mom comes up to me and she goes, I didn't bring my dog, but I brought a bird. And she like lifted the lapel of her shirt and she literally had a bird. And so that became like, hey, we missed you at the event. It was so cool. There was actually a bird there. And that what a cool way to just connect with people. I don't know. And then people started posting it. It was great. It was the best unplanned thing that's ever happened to a client event.
That is so funny. Was not expecting that.
Nope.
Awesome. I see we have Devaney on the call. Devaney, were you coming on to ask a question?
I was. Hi guys. Sorry,
Awesome.
I'm on my way into San Francisco actually, and
I'll be there tomorrow.
Yes. Well, I was gonna ask, what is your itinerary while you're here and while you're in
Napa? I love it. So we have reservations at China Live tomorrow night, and then we're going to a Giants game, and then the Saturday morning, we pick up our vehicle through whatever that like Airbnb vehicle thing is, and we go to Sonoma. So we'll be in Sonoma.
Love it. We were actually just there this last weekend touring some wedding venues. I have my fiance here too. He's actually driving me. But highly suggest Walt Wines if you like Pinos. We're members there, and if you want a free tasting, happy to meet you there too.
Oh my gosh!
Ooh,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, y'all should make that happen, Devin and Allie. I know you guys would like each other. Clearly,
awesome.
Yeah, Devin, gotten a good dose of you here. Devin, did you have a business question too, or are you just popping on to say that?
I was just talking about wine. Sorry. Hi.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Okay. Fun fact, Devin, my husband and I have decided we're going to get our W set, which is like so you can be a sommelier, which is where you're like basically in the business, or you can get your W set where you just enjoy wine and want to be able to talk more about it. So
I love that. I love that. I would be very curious about that too, actually.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Awesome. I love that. I love the connections that are happening. We want to be respectful of Allie's time. She clearly has a busy business. Any final questions before we let her go?
I just want to say I'm thankful for being here. Thank you for listening to me. Never would I ever think that I had anything worthwhile to say. So this is truly an honor, and I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Allie, I believe people can follow you on Instagram. It's at Allie W. Parker. Is that right?
Yeah, but that's my personal. At Parker Residential is the business stuff.
Parker Residential, easy enough. Go find Allie there. Find her on Facebook, be friends with her, follow along, and just kind of rip off and duplicate. So many of us at KW love to do that. If you have a question, you can DM Allie on Instagram at Parker Residential. Is there a good way people can email you as well if they want to email you that you want to put?
Yep, easy. ALLIE@parkerresidential.com. I'm an open book. I often share all the resources I created for hiring. I'll share my farming campaign. Like I said, rising tide floats all boats. So feel free to rip off anything that I've created.
I love it. You guys, thank us so much for your time. Allie, any parting words of advice you have for the KWYP crowd out here?
Hey, go turn off your phone and drink a beer.
Love it. With a bird. Go find a bird. Yeah, at a brewery. Okay. I love it. Awesome. Well, you will probably not have a hard time convincing YP crew around the country to drink a beer unless they're on 75 hard. So thank you guys so much for your time. Please, guys, highlight Allie. When you see this link, share it, send it to any other agents you know who may benefit from it. The link will be live on YouTube either later today or tomorrow at the latest. So thank you again for your time. My name's Patrick. I'm the vice president of our Young Professionals chapter here in the Triangle. Kate is our wonderful president. We have Emily, Mike, and Ryan on our leadership team. I don't think Stephen was able to make it this morning, but we're here just to bring value. And so if you have anyone that you think would be a great guest like Allie on this call, please let me know. Next month, we have Ken Posick from down in Orlando, who is like the YouTube king, who's going to be coming on to share. He's incredibly generous with his time as well. We have Daniel Dixon in November from Colorado. And so we've got an amazing slate lined up for you guys. So the second Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern, please hop on, share the links, help us to continue to grow this series. That way we can add value to agents all around the country and around the world. So with that said, thank you guys. We're going to log off and we hope to see you next month. Bye, everybody.